Welcome to the show, ladies and gentlemen. I'm joined again by the mighty Warren King. It's the round table. We're looking at EFC78 coming up. Welcome to the show. Welcome, bro. What's happening?
Oh, nothing much. It's been a good week. I'm excited for this card.
Your knee tends to disagree with your good week.
The joys of jiu-jitsu. Oh, my goodness. I can't actually remember one training session this year where I haven't been painful or something's been wrong with me. Age 32 and I'm dying here.
I always say there's like two kinds of strapping on a knee. Like one to help the problem and one strapping the knee right back on. It's like a band-aid over a burst pipe, that boy.
Well, literally this knee has got a steel bracket that's sitting in the side just so my leg doesn't like fall onto your leg over there. So we'll see what happens.
Fantastic. Anyways, man, EFC78, that's what we want to have a look at. That's Cape Town coming up this Saturday. Pretty eventful card. Unfortunately, there's a fight or two that didn't come to fruition for separate reasons, but all in all, it's a pretty good card. I'm super excited about a couple of returns of guys like Sean DeLange I got to speak to in the week. Nice to see Saxon Delafield back in the mix, who's also pumped up. And I guess we wait to see the Jake Hadley, very fired up Jake Hadley, and of course the bantamweight unification bout, and also Luke Michael and Conrad Siabi, which I think is a cracking fight. Obviously that division's quite nice now. It's opened up obviously with the saga of Gunther Kalunda, belts being stripped and Grand Prix being set. It's like we're back in Pride. We wake up in a different year, but it's exciting, man. I guess. Unfortunately, Conor Hignett, Gary Joshua fell off, which I think most people were super excited about. I know I was super excited about that fight. But yeah, man, this is the card we got.
Yeah. I mean, I think the sad part about the Conor fight is that he showed glimpses of a really technical fighter. Obviously, you got kind of steamrolled a little bit by BK, but there were like moments in that fight where you really wanted to see him fight someone that wasn't quite at BK's level, just to see how he can get off with that striking. And so yeah, it was a bit disappointing to not get him out here. But yeah, I think the card's pretty good in general. One or two fights that I'm not 100% sure about, like the ladies' fights. I mean, you got two debutants with very little MMA experience, but then there's some awesome debuts as well. Zach Badat from Durban, that's going to be a sick fight.
From Clint Walters' gym. Yeah,
from Novagen / Domination, and then Josemar's back, August is back, Sandile is back. I mean, that's a great undercard.
Yeah, some good names in the undercard there.
Yeah,
some great fights also. And the nice thing there about seeing these sort of guys like the Badat brothers coming through, it's also in divisions where we're lacking a bit of depth. And I see those guys coming through. I think Sandile, August, I know you and August are the best of mates. Hopefully he just makes weight. Let's just start with the weight cut and hope he's fine. Yeah, look, I think with the ladies division, like it's one of those things where you kind of almost, like if I can make an analogy of, not to paint the same picture, but any decent heavyweight has a better chance of sliding into the UFC heavyweight division because they're quite scarce, or they were at a stage, you know what I mean? So, like, I guess in the ladies divisions, if you show like any sort of promise, like the chances of you getting called up earlier is quite imminent, you know what I mean? Like you because the weight classes and stuff are so shallow, like any sort of lady that comes from like a good K1 background, has a decent quick amateur career, will probably get called up. So yeah, man, like it's,
I'm not 100% sure that that's the case with the two ladies in question. I mean, there's not much about them. I know Number fought Cassandra. But I mean, the weight difference is very visible in that situation. And I could find pretty much nothing about her opponent, so I don't know. It's a peculiar situation.
We wait and see. It's in development, so we wait to see. Obviously, if you take a look at the main card, like we said, Conor Hignett was supposed to be on that against Gary Joshua. We've got I'm calling him the EFC Ronin, Sean DeLange, who's back from wherever he's been. I got to chat to him. It was quite cool. Like, and he's quite determined that this time he's here to stay. He's serious about it, and and he wants to focus. You know, he said he had some things. He's a full-time farmer. I think he's probably the only full-time farmer stroke EFC fighter, which is pretty cool. And John, man, you know, like Sean DeLange is a cool guy to have in the mix, and especially in Cape Town. I think he really brings it. He's a fan favorite. He comes forward. He hits like a truck.
Yeah.
Can get hit like a truck as well.
You never really want to bet against him. Every time he comes in as like a dead underdog, he just kind of sticks it to everyone. I remember when he came up against Saxon, I think in his second fight, everyone was like, oh, the 1 minute monster's going to return. You know, Saxon had a great debut, had a great amateur career, and then Sean just put a dead stop to that train. And then again, Dino Bagatine fight. Once again, you're like, Sean and Dino aren't even on the same level, and then Dino comes, Sean squeezes out a split decision victory over Dino. So yeah, it's one person you never bet against.
He seems to think that Teniers is going to come with quite a wrestling heavy approach. You know, maybe they feel that's the key to beat Sean DeLange. But I mean, like, it's a funny thing. Like, how do you prepare for a guy like Sean DeLange? Like, what do you do? Like, you don't know anything. You don't know where he is, what he's doing, which is quite a cool thing if you think about it. You know what I mean? He's just like this dude out there, like subsistent farming, doing his thing, and all of a sudden he arrives and kicks your ass, and fucking he's gone again the next day, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, Marcel is also quite a character, and I think he's pretty accurate in his assessment of how Marcel's going to approach. I remember I prepped Dave to fight Marcel at one of the EFCs, and when you go through all his tape, like, he is very grapple heavy. Even though he was fighting out of Quinton Chong's gym, you'd expect this Muay Thai background. He is very grapple heavy, and he did everything we expected him to do. So I think he will come with a very heavy top game and try and out wrestle him for 3 rounds. But it's easier said than done.
Moving on in the card is Saxon Delafield, who we just mentioned, against Roderick Henner. This is a weird one for me. Like, it's a great fight, don't get me wrong. You know, that position on the main card, you know, two guys who are desperately looking for a win. I think I spoke to Saxon as well in this week, and to his coach, Mick from PFA, and they all had the similar sort of things to say. Like, Saxon believes, like, whatever happened before his last fight was kind of, non-consequential. Like, his career starts now. He's kind of said that, you know, like, moving forward, it's a whole new start. He's kind of 1-0 now. You know, he's made the move to Cape Town. He's with PFA, everything's a bit different for him, and he's a lot more focused on his diet and weight cut and getting that right, which is cool to hear. You know, you want to hear guys. I mean, Saxon's one of those guys who's like a lifelong martial artist. You know what I'm saying? And I think he's kind of had to make some hard choices in his life now and be like, look, it's now or never. You know what I mean? He's got a kid. He's motivated by that. He wants to get the job done. You know what I mean? And Roderick Henner's he's no walkover. Like, he's a physically tough guy. You know what I mean? So it also makes for a great fight, man.
Yeah, I've actually trained with both of them early in our career. We used to train at Quantum Tribe, and that's where Roderick kind of started out. And one thing about Roderick is he's got absolute dynamite in his hands. So he might not be the most technical fighter, but if he connects you, you're dead, right?
That's
Saxon,
the third time you said that today.
Saxon, he's far better than what his record shows. When it came to sparring, when we were training at Vensel's gym, no one would even come close to Saxon. You know, I think being under Mike, who's quite like discipline orientated, you know, he's quite a tough coach. Sure. I think it was the right thing for someone like Saxon, and you can see he's actually flourishing in that environment. So I kind of believe Saxon when he says this is a new Saxon, this is his career starts now, he's 1-0. And I think in the next couple of fights, we'll see a decent contender emerge. I'll be honest with you, I don't give Roderick much of a chance in this fight. But, you know,
so anyone... What are you saying? So if you're betting, just put like 50 grand on Saxon.
The house. And if you lose, I will reimburse you.
Hashtag just kidding. Yeah, look, it's a great fight. And that's the thing. Like, I think even for fans, even if you watch a guy like Saxon Delafield, it's almost like frustrating to the point because you know he's better. I think the Anisid Kanyeba was kind of like an egg in your face kind of moment. and he spoke about it with me. He was like, it's honestly one of his biggest regrets in his career was, he wasn't taking that fight seriously. Like he had some other stuff going on, and so, and it's quite frustrating to see a guy who is way better than that. Losing those situations, which is
definitely.
So he's got a bit of a fire under his ass to get going, which is exciting, man. And I think he's an exciting guy to keep an eye on. I think he's going to make a run now. That's kind of the vibe you're getting from him and his team, and he's really going to have a crack at it. You know what I mean? Saxon Delafield hits like a truck as well, man. He's got great ground ability. His jiu-jitsu's off the chart. He's like, he was telling me, I think in that Shuriken kickboxing, he got a black belt at like 12 years old. I don't even know how that works, but anyway, he had it. You know what I mean? He's been fighting since he was a kid.
Yeah.
So he's a guy who's been involved with martial arts forever. So just technically, just based on hours, he should be killing the game, man.
Well, as an amateur, I'm not sure how many amateur fights he had in the end, but I know that he had this long streak of fights that ended in like 1 minute. I think all his amateur fights he won within the first round,
yeah.
And almost all of them within a minute or a minute and a half. And he came in as a 1 minute monster. And I mean, he didn't fight palookas. I mean, he fought a whole bunch like Quade Allen, Riyad Pandy, Martin De Beer. He didn't fight absolute losers. I mean, all of those guys are
he was still
fighters.
in high school while that was happening.
100%. He was riding matric finals and knocking oaks out on the weekend. So it would be nice to see the return of that.
Sure.
So I think provided he keeps everything there mentally, I think he's coming. A contender will be established through Saxon. Is that part of the? No, that's lightweight, eh? So it's not part of the welterweight Grand Prix.
No, the welterweight Grand Prix is the next fight. Is that you called it?
Yeah, I'm just getting it back up and running.
Luke Michael versus Conrad Tiabi and Jose De Rocha versus Temba Garumba.
Okay.
Those will be the contenders. Obviously, that's the next fight on the Cape Town card, which I think is one of those where you would have maybe considered to have that as your opening fight for the main card, I guess. But it's a massively important fight that was supposed to happen before Luke got injured. I think Conrad and his team have almost willed him to not get injured in this one. They've said don't pull out about 50,000 times.
Yeah.
But yeah, man, this is a super interesting one for me. I think Luke. He's one of those weird guys in terms of weight classes because he's like massive at lightweight and like okay at welterweight. He's not like the biggest welterweight. He's big. Don't get me wrong. Like he's a big dude, but he when you look at him in terms of like a welterweight outlook, he's not massive. Yeah. But neither is Conrad. You know what I mean? In terms of like physical makeup, they're very different physically.
Yeah.
But I think it's an interesting fight because you've got a guy in Conrad who comes forward with like reckless abandon. You know what I mean? He'll just come forward. I always said to him, like, if you want to put Conrad away, you're probably going to need 2 baseball bats, and that might not even work. You know what I'm saying? Against a guy in Luke, it's no secret. He likes to finish his fights on the ground. So that always makes an interesting matchup for me. The pressure coming forward and the ability to get that fight to the ground and how that's going to happen.
Yeah. Look, I think Luke's a great case for that 165 division. With that said, though, like when you roll with Luke, he doesn't feel like a lightweight.
Yeah.
He feels a lot heavier than a lightweight. I mean, it's no secret that most of Luke's wins have been on the ground. So I'm sure that's probably kind of the direction it's going to go. And Conrad just is just a scrappy brawler.
Yeah.
Brings a lot of pressure from his side. So I think it's an interesting fight. I agree with you. Probably more of an opening fight on the main card. But it's very important. You have to establish new contenders. You have to get a new champion in there. The welterweight division's always been cursed with champions. For 7 title fights that never got defended. Then Dave defended it and then relinquished it. And then Drickus came in, took the title, then he relinquished it. And then Gunther became the automatic champion. Doesn't get to defend, gets stripped of it. And now we're in the Grand Prix stage.
No. He's relinquished.
Relinquished.
Yeah, Drickus is relinquished. So Drickus, from what I understand, is saying that he can't make that weight anymore. He doesn't want to make that weight. It's not good for him. His body's going through too much.
He made it to start with, to be completely honest.
Yeah, it was a bit of a heavy cut, but I don't know. Well, respect to him, man. A lot of guys don't make that decision at the right time. So I think it was, it's one of those things that it happens quite often. Like guys go overseas. Like he was at 365 with Henry Hooft and came back and was like, Welterweight's not for me.
Fuck this welterweight job.
Yeah, you know, so I'm guessing maybe something happened there. He had a bit of an influence, you know. He kind of saw like he doesn't have to be killing himself. Maybe he can hang with middleweights, you know, international middleweights. Maybe that's what he feels. I don't know. I'm speculating, but
Well, I'll put it in this way, right? So Scott McIntosh controls his weight cuts and so forth. And Scott said to me one time when we were cutting weight with Matt Birsky, he said, it's actually ludicrous that you're going to have a near-death experience the day before you're going to have a fight where you're required to perform at the highest level. And that like resonated with me, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately. And I suppose that's also maybe Scott just giving him some deep, having some deep discussions with him and just saying, you know, if you want to be the best version of Drickus, you can't sit here at welterweight, killing yourself making welterweight to put on a subpar performance for Drickus's level. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Scott drove that decision a little bit from his side.
yeah, sure, man. And I think it's one of those weird things, like you know, to deplete yourself all the way, or to stay at like a more natural weight, and it's coming a lot more to light now. Like guys are trying to decide, but it's obviously it's got to do with your physical makeup. Like you said, like Luke is a contender for 165, but he is one of those guys who can float. Like he said to me, now he was at over 80 kilos. So lightweight seems like an impossible dream now.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? Like I don't know if he's ever going back, you know. But the big marker comes when guys travel overseas and they see what an international or a UFC caliber weight division looks like, and then they gauge where they are. You know what I mean? And I think that's often an eye opener for guys. I think maybe Drickus might have had it in his mind as like young in his career that he has to get to welterweight for the international stage because he's going to be a bit bigger, you know. And then went over there and realized, like, okay, hang on, maybe I've got this wrong. You know, maybe I can hang with middleweights. You know what I mean? So maybe that sparked it. You know, you're seeing a lot of like guys like Luke Rockhold, Chris Weidman now looking at moving to light heavyweight, you know, just to avoid the cut. And they're big dudes, bro. Like, I don't think we really understand how big these guys are and how far they're pressing the boundaries, you know what I mean, to get to those weight divisions. We've seen so many guys like, you know, and you look at them cut. Like, if you go to fights, for example, with someone who's not like deeply entrenched into MMA, and you ask them like, how much do you think these guys weigh? Like, what's their weight class? And they're like 80 kilos, and you're like, try 60, bro. You know what I mean? Like, it's people can't like quantify the magnitude of how much weight is getting tossed around. You know what I'm saying?
Definitely. You know, when you're doing the weight cuts, so I've fought at lightweight, featherweight, bantamweight. The fights where I've made bantamweight, it's not that you can't make the weight, right? You make the weight, you rehydrate, and you get into the fight. When you've made 61, like for me, 61, get into the fight, I physically can't even think in the hexagon. My brain is completely blurry.
You don't need much brain capacity though at that moment. So it's fine.
Depends who you're fighting. You have to think about how fast you can run or where you're going to run to. But you can't like think clearly. Even though you're not gassed, like you got no energy, and you know your actual biology of what's happening there in the cage is just completely messed up. And then you go up one weight category and you feel like top of the world. You know, you get in there, you can think clearly. You know, at 61, I would be fighting and listening to the commentators talk about the fight, and I hear people in the crowd, and like you can't like focus, you can't. And that's been my experience. I've heard other fighters talk about that, you know. And it's only when you get a taste of fighting up one weight class that you're like, hold on, the squeeze is definitely not worth the juice, you know. It's you definitely you might not be the strongest guy at the next weight class up, but you're a lot sharper at that weight class, you know. And I think people need to figure that out for themselves. If you're getting in there and you can't think properly, and now you have to go fight someone and be competing at like at your optimal physical performance, then you know you have to like start testing higher weight classes and reduce the amount of weight you're cutting. I think anything over 10% of your body weight is ludicrous to cut for these fights. And I know there's lots of like strict cutting protocols coming in from California State Athletic Commission, 1FC, and so forth. So I think everyone's getting on to like trying like culling off these extreme
drastic
weight cuts.
Sure.
But you might find Drickus tasted the middleweight, like his performance at middleweight, and was like, you know what, welterweight's not worth it.
That's the next Luke Rockhold to the light heavyweight.
Yeah.
Jeez.
That's
But you
mental.
see again, so like Luke Rockhold is in essence a middleweight. He's moving up now. Look at the size difference between those guys. I mean, Dricus is a monster. He's not a small guy. You know what I mean? It's just crazy to see, like, and imagine Luke Rockhold was making it to middleweight, and you kind of like got to figure out how these guys are doing it. You know what I mean? And like, big up to them to make that decision to say, look, you know, this weight cut's a bit drastic. Like, it's unnecessary. Let's get out of here. You know, which is cool to see. Anyway,
back to EFC78.
Back to 78. So let's have a look from here. These last three fights: Luke, Michael, Conrad, CRB. What do you think are the keys for both of these guys to get that W? Obviously, the incentive is now there. You're going to get through to fight for the title. You know, obviously, there's a lot involved there. So the guys are motivated. They've got all the incentive they need. But what do you think technically is the keys for each victory there for Luke and Conrad?
So I think from Conrad's side, his pressure is one of his strongest elements to obviously keep the pressure and keep the fight standing. Conrad, I mean, I'm sure he'll admit it himself, he's not great on the ground, whereas Luke's strength is the ground. And then for Luke's side is to like not get suckered into Conrad's pressure and get pushed up against the cage and let Conrad start firing off from there, and obviously get this to the ground where he can obviously take his time and do his thing there, you know. I think for Conrad it's more how Luke enters it mentally. If Luke comes in there fired up, I don't see Conrad beating Luke. If Luke's there completely 100% mentally, I think Luke physically and technically is a better fighter than Conrad. But Conrad is mentally strong, you know, like he'll stay in the fight until the bitter end. So yeah, I think those are the two main elements of the fight. I'm not 100, you know, in terms of welterweight Grand Prix. I think I would have liked to have seen some other fighters also maybe make this like an 8-man Grand Prix and not just try and get an immediate champion and have someone champion by June, but rather or July, but rather like maybe have this fight, the Jose De Rocha fight, and get some other welterweights into the mix, because I don't think you've got a good enough spread of the actual landscape of welterweight. But yeah, I think it's a mental game for Luke, and Conrad is just Conrad. There's not much to say about Conrad. Yeah,
he's looking to make it a brawl. He wants you to brawl, and I think that's where he shines.
And if you get drawn into that, it's the end of the game for you. You know, that's like he's so good at that. I mean, he's good at making it emotional, and you get in there and he makes it like a fight and clips you and drops you. And whereas I think the guys that come in there and they're level-headed and they play their game generally walk out the win.
Stick to the program. Yeah, it's also again like everything. It's easier said than done, but it's a cracking fight, man. I'm super excited about it. You know, I mean, Luke's also a young guy looking to make inroads, and you know, Conrad's been quite vocal about his aspirations for a title, and you know, taking it back to his home to Mamelodi, the Mamelodi faithful. So it's, you know, like there's a lot of incentive behind this fight. So I think it's going to raise the stakes. Yeah, it's going to be fireworks.
Where is Conrad training out of?
So I think he trains out of what's left of Brothers in Arms.
Do they actually have a facility? Or is it?
So I think they train out of that Move Fitness in Silverton. Okay. They use that gym, and then they cross training with the guys at UMF a lot. So I know they do a lot of sparring there, and they do a bit of groundwork.
Because when I went on the website, it said that his trainer was Roderick Kenner, out of I don't know what Roderick's Lethal MMA or something. I can't remember it, but I was like, that is very peculiar. I don't know if that's a recent change or just maybe a website error, but yeah.
Yeah. So Conrad is also coaching at the same time. You know what I mean? I think he's kind of like taken over that sort of team. But from what I've seen, they use the facilities at that Move Fitness in Silverton, and then they kind of cross training between that and UMF. You know, so he's definitely getting good looks, you know what I mean? Like he's definitely prepared.
Like, I mean, putting rounds in with the Mart's never going to be easy. Putting rounds in with Temba's never going to be easy. Sylvester Chifumbu, I mean, all three of those guys, those aren't great sparring rounds if you don't come ready, eh? But yeah.
Yeah, so interesting fight, man. Then it's co-main, I think. The one people are going to be super excited for. You know, it's one of those fights where like 50% are tuning in to to see a good fight and 50% are tuning in the hopes that Jake Hadley's going to get sparred. You know what I mean? Like it's quite a weird setup. Like, you know, it's like, we did talk about this before about him getting this instant title shot just arriving here, and you know, but man, I honestly I take my hat off to this kid. He's brash. He says what he wants. You know what I mean? He's confident as all hell. He really believes that he's going to get the job done and claim that title. You know what I mean? Like I say, good luck to him, man. That's a task and a half. But like, what are we going to say if he gets it done?
I mean that's the thing. That's the thing, right? So you can look at it and be like, this guy has come in. He hasn't even had a fight in the EFC. He's going to fight the most dominant champion currently on the roster, the only flyweight champion in EFC history. And someone that's done pretty well against all international foes that have been sent his way. I mean, everyone keeps harping on about the heel hook that Papa had on him, but I mean, that was like 20 seconds of a fight where that guy got murdered.
Yeah.
And then the Gary Joshua fight was a clear example of how dominant he was. Chifumbu, I mean, he almost retired Chifumbu in that fight. Broken orbital.
He's been in hospital for a while.
Craig Nino twice. Yeah. He butchered Craig Nino twice. So, I mean, props to Jake coming out and being willing to take on that task. But you have to think that's a huge ask for someone to come out here.
You know, there's one thing that I picked up from Jake Hadley, and it was like, there's a marker that I don't think a lot of people have realized. You know what I mean? He didn't just start calling out Zulu Boy by chance. You know what I mean? It's like all part of like a greater plan. So when I asked him how this all came about, his reaction to me was that he's been watching Zulu Boy for years. Like, it's like an obsession. Like, he has an obsession. Like, he made up his mind a long time ago, I'll beat him. You know what I mean? And he's stuck to that, which is, it's crazy, man, if you think about it. Like, he's been obsessing about this moment, to get you to fight Zulu Boy. How many guys are calling out Zulu Boy?
No one is.
So, like, and he knows, and he said he's been watching Zulu Boy every step of the way.
Yeah.
It's not like he doesn't know. He's not like arriving here like unknowingly what's going on. He knows exactly what he's in for. You know what I'm saying? So he's like, 100%, I want that guy. I can beat him, and he believes it to his core. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And he like, if I watch some of his fights, that he's legit. This is what people don't understand about Jake Hadley. He's legit. You know what I'm saying? Whether he can be legit against Zulu Boy is a different story. Yeah. Because I think for a lot of people, I can't say I've ever been hit by Zulu Boy, but watching his fights, the initial reaction from his opponents when they get hit, it changes everything. It's almost like that oh shit factor. You know, like, okay, like I knew what I was in for, but once you're in there,
and the type of pace that he hits you at,
exactly. That pace and power, I think, scares the shit out of people in there. Yeah. And I've seen, if you watch like that, there's like that highlight clip with him against Sylvester, almost like he's pushing Sylvester against the cage. You can see in Sylvester's face, he's like I made a mistake.
And,
you know what I mean?
Sylvester's a high-level striker. What people don't understand about Sylvester is that he's at a point where he can start a combination. He's obviously got something in his head of like what type of combination. But based on your reaction, he gets a read, and he can like switch up that combo mid-combo, and continue at a different angle. He can switch stances mid-combo. Like he's like a very dynamic striker, and Zulu Boy put him like in his place. You know, it wasn't like that fight was close. Zulu Boy gave him a hiding, right? And everyone thought that finally you're gonna have someone of equal stand-up caliber to Zulu Boy, but it didn't pan out like that at all.
Yeah.
So now the thing is, like, you see Jake fight, and I've watched a couple of his fights, and he looks very good. But he looks good against what competition, you know? Yeah. You got the best guys on the African continent fighting Zulu Boy at every fight, you know? I mean, the last time Zulu Boy had a relative unknown is maybe like 7 fights ago, you know? Like we're talking fighting the best guys every fight for the last 7 to 8 fights. And dominating those fights, barring obviously the Demar Pena fights and then the Hiramasa fights at Tough 4. And the only common denominator between the 2 fights he lost is a strong wrestling base. And I don't think Jake brings that to the... I mean, he seems completely apt on the ground, that he's got a couple of rear naked choke wins, and he seems pretty good at exposing the back and getting the finish from there. But I just don't know. I don't know if he has the right skill set to beat Zulu. Also, with that said, you've never seen him come up against someone of Zulu's caliber and seen if he rises to the occasion. You know, some guys, they fight their best when their back's up against the wall and they're not expected to win, and they come in there and they just silence the critics. You know, so I don't know what to expect for this fight. I think it's highly unlikely Jake wins, but you never know. You never know what's going to happen.
Hopefully we get a 5-round dog show. That's what I'm hoping for. Yeah, Constantia right now.
I think the CEO of Constantia, every time they say, "Oh, Zulu's fighting," he's like,
God
fuck. Yeah. Start processing the claims. Like, you just check the claims department. Start filling out the paperwork.
Yeah, dude. The Jake Hadley's going to go through almost every medical assessment before, just to make sure that any hairline fracture, even if he's got like a fractured ear, they're like, "No, sorry,
no,
buddy.
done. Out of
You're
this."
right." Yeah, dude. It's like, you know what? Respect to the kid. It's, you know, it's not like he's getting paid $500,000 to take this fight. You know what I'm saying? So
even.
respect to him. He's got a mission, and he's going for it, man. And I think it's gonna be, you know, everyone's kind of like, "Oh, Jake Hadley just getting," you know, like they're kind of negative, but 100% they're gonna be watching that fight because anybody who's got that sort of cojones to come and do something like that, you're gonna want to see what.
But even that plays the heel role. Like, when they come in, you got the people that are watching for their opponent to win, you got the people that are watching for them to win, and you got the people that doesn't really care as long as he loses, you know. That's like, you get those like third type of fan, and I think this fight's attracting that third type of fan. You know, they want to watch him lose, and then the other guys want to watch either of them win. You know, so it's an interesting fight. I'm excited for it. I think it's gonna be great.
Yeah, me too. I think it's gonna be a cracking fight, man. Expect the unexpected. I reckon that's the key. Then the main event.
Do we know who's coming out with him yet?
With Jake?
Yeah. Is Joe coming? Joe Cummings coming out?
No, I don't think they're part of the same team anymore. Eh?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
so where's Jake training out of now?
Jake is with the Fearless MMA in the UK, which is, I can't remember exactly, but it's like close to Birmingham.
Yeah.
So I think when UTC split, he went his own way. And
that brings another
Fearless
factor
MMA,
that you're going to have your first fight in a new gym. Sure. I don't know, was his last fight with that gym? I mean, the UTC thing happened at the beginning of the year, so I doubt it.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on those finer details of his camp.
No, but I mean, it plays a huge factor. If you change camps, you know, there's a statistic that kind of supports the people who change camps and have a fight early generally lose that fight. You know, because it's a new system. You haven't had enough time to accommodate the system. You haven't had enough time to get used to the coaches, the style, and there's a lot of like uncertainty. So I know, like, a lot of times when you change camps, guys want you to stick with their camp for at least 6 months so you can kind of get the feel and get fully immersed in their system. So I don't know, it could be a factor, you know, new camp, first time you're fighting out of the UK, it's, you know, first time you're traveling 12 hours to get to your venue, you know, it's...
So are you saying, basically, again, you can put another 50,000 on Zulu Boy, guaranteed?
Better bets is either going to love me or hate me, or Keith Ho is either going to love me or hate me.
Okay, so we're up to 100K guaranteed from Warren King. The next fight, the main event, man, this is a fight, like, it's I'm super excited about this fight, to be honest. Like, I'm a big fan of JP Base. I think he's achieved so much at such a young age. He's highly motivated. He makes me feel lazy. You know, he's one of those guys who's like very focused on the task. He's highly motivated. Lutando Biko, I think he's one of those guys, I think we always underestimate him. Like, you just, for some reason, you just expect him not to flourish. I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
And he's materialized into like a great MMA fighter. You know, everyone talks about his judo and that sort of thing, but like his wrestling ability, his fight IQ is up there. You know what I mean? And he's a really great fighter. And I think stylistically, this fight, you know, both guys are going to have to adapt once they get in there, because I think they both know what each other's going to do, but I don't think that's going to be the reality. You know what I mean? I think something's going to happen from both sides, where they're going to have to kind of adjust and maybe venture out of their game plan a little bit and make a few adjustments. But this is a fight 100%. I feel confident. I see it going 5 rounds for whatever reason. I don't think Lutando Biko is a guy you're going to put away easy, and I think JP Pace just has too many skills to get caught. You know what I mean? If that makes sense.
I think I have a bit of a different assessment of it. I would love to see what you're saying. I mean, who doesn't want to see a 5-round fight between two highly skilled opponents? I mean, if the March card was anything to go by, I know the Martin versus Joe fight wasn't everyone's cup of tea.
Sure.
But for me, it was definitely my cup of tea.
100%.
The amount of small technical elements that you could pick up in that fight it was very enjoyable to watch. And I'd love to see JP and Lutando go 5 rounds, but I'm not 100% sure that that's the reality of it. If you break it down into the 3 primary elements of the fight, you got the stand-up, the wrestling, so like the controlling of keeping it standing or to the ground, and you got the grappling part. I don't see Lutando beating JP in any one of those 3 elements in isolation. The only thing that I can see potentially being an issue for JP's side is maybe Shorty has like a history of not making the most action-packed fights. You know, he kind of holds back and rides out the decision over.
Yeah, like hold good positions. Like get in a strong position and just kind of hold it. No, it's all good. Go for it.
So, I think if JP walks in there and does what he's good at, which I mean, he's got dynamic footwork, dynamic striking, he's got world-class wrestling, which he proved against Magomedov in the last fight, and his jiu-jitsu is super underrated, even after almost chopping Philippe Bruch's head off on the mounted guillotine. But I mean, JP truly is a savage on the ground and in striking. With that said, though, every time Lutando comes, you kind of underestimate him, and he kind of proves everyone wrong every fight. And he's got such a good story as well. You want to see him do well, but I don't see that happening against JP. I think JP's 1 or 2 levels above everyone else in this division. You know, I mean, I'm in the same division. I'm in that bantamweight division. Well, not anymore, but I was in the bantamweight division. He's just like, he's a couple steps above everyone and kind of like grown out of the EFC, if that makes any sense.
Sure.
He belongs in international competition. And I think coming back and fighting Lutando is, I mean, I don't want to say he's a lesser fighter, but he's not as tough of a fight as the Magomedov fight was, you know?
Yeah, just in that Magomedov fight, there was one thing that really stuck out for me, and I put it to JP. His striking was on a like whole different like universe for him. You know, I'm not saying like he was Muhammad Ali of the bantamweights, but to watch him progress, you know what I mean? And like obviously he's still young and he's learning and he's progressing as an MMA athlete. His striking, the confidence in his striking, the creativity, you know what I mean? And everyone talks about his wrestling, and I think for a guy like that, it makes him so much more dangerous because you're so focused on his wrestling that you forget about everything else that he brings. You know what I mean? Like his striking in that fight to me just stuck out. His movement, his footwork, the angles he was creating. Like obviously like typical Richie Kwan style. You know what I mean? You could see the system is starting to make sense to him. Yeah. You know, and like he's becoming like this, the protege of Richie Kwan. You know what I mean? And he's really starting to implement all of these things. And the second you've got the confidence in your wrestling and your jiu-jitsu ability, the hands become more free because you're not worried to be taken down. You know what I mean? And I think he's 100% the case for that. I agree with you 100%. I don't think JP Bays, let me not say doesn't belong in the UFC. I think he's got the abilities to compete in the UFC or wherever he likes in the world. You know what I mean? I feel like obviously unifying that belt and defending that belt and just creating that stronger case continuously. You know what I mean? And he'll get there eventually. We forget that he's 22 years old. Yeah. You know what I mean? I think everyone forgets, and you have to kind of pinch yourself to realize that he's still just this 22-year-old dude. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think he won the belt at like 19. You know what I mean? Like he is again another guy who was fighting in high school kind of thing. You know what I mean? So
if you watch his progression, I mean, his amateur career, I remember he used to pitch up and just out wrestle guys for rounds. You know, very little striking, very little jiu-jitsu, but he was winning fights just with using his wrestling. And then the jiu-jitsu kind of he became really good at taking the back and getting the choke, and then the striking started coming along. He had a couple of decent striking exchanges early on, and now he's like, you're not sure where you want to actually take this fight. Like, do you want to strike with him? Is that really what you want to do? Do you want to grapple? Like, I'm not sure you really want to. I mean, I'll put it to you this way, right? I'm a brown belt, and I've gone to many gyms and rolled other brown belts and black belts and done really well against brown belts and black belts. And when I roll with JP, it's not as easy as rolling other brown belts and black belts. You know, it's quite a difficult situation.
So, you said that. I actually said to him the other day I wanted to do like a post in honor of jiu-jitsu, like the two of us standing next to each other, because I'm probably about 60 kilos heavier than JP, but if he gets a top position, I'm stuffed. I'm not going anywhere. You know what I mean? That's just the way it is, and he's that good. You know what I mean? Like he's top pressure. His ability on the ground is out of this world. He's brilliant. You know what I mean? Like I think a lot of guys underestimate just how strong he is in that weight division and how technical he is. And like I've heard guys say, he's a good wrestler, but he's not on the level of the Buertas or Iga Cabeza or even BK. And I think people are mistaken. Like his wrestling know-how and ability is world class.
But they're comparing wrestling versus MMA wrestling.
Exactly.
That's a whole different. Igor might be however many times national champion, but that's at freestyle wrestling or Greco-Roman, whatever the discipline is. MMA wrestling is a whole different game, you know. And while having that more traditional wrestling background helps a hell of a lot coming into MMA for the transition into MMA wrestling, if you don't have the right coaching and direction with that skill set, it's not going to help as much as being a pretty decent wrestler and coming and getting good instruction on the MMA wrestling, you know. With all of that said, once again, I'd love to see a 5-round fight and let them scrap it out for 5 rounds, and you have a unified champion. But I don't see it happening. I'll be honest with you.
So again, what would
another 50k?
Yeah, another 50k.
So now we're 150k on this one. Justin Ferrer, get your betting account ready for me.
Please link to betting site below.
Oh man.
This video is sponsored by Keith Hobart Exchange. Shame, Keith gone.
Anyway. Who's it now? Better Bets. No? Super. No.
No, it's
Better Bets.
It seems like it's going to be Betway. That's
Betway.
Bet word on the street.
Oh.
But you didn't hear that
BigAl
from me. You didn't hear that from me. That seems to be a word on the street. But yeah, no.
No, very quietly.
So what would be your keys again here for this fight? We've spoken about wrestling. Like a lot of guys, if Lutando Biko, in my eyes, is going to come with that same strategy he brought against Carl Eleanor, it's not going to work for him.
Yeah,
that's the way I see it. So what would you say are the keys for both guys here?
So I think for JP is just to stick with dynamic striking, keep it. I think the gap is even more evident in the striking exchanges. So if I was JP, I'd keep it standing and just use his dynamic footwork and his pressure and so forth. With that said, I think if Lutando does get a takedown, JP's really good off his back. He's really good at turning the position over. He's really good at controlling the top position. So the only way I can really see Lutando like getting a win is just grinding it out along the cage and maybe trying to like just push the time a little bit, and then maybe Lutando's had like a split decision go his way here and there. So that, to be honest, I can't see it, but it's MMA as well. You know, anything can happen, but I can't see the way for Lutando to beat JP at this stage. I just think the difference in actual skill sets is just too big.
Yeah, 100%. And you've also you mentioned earlier like where guys are training and stuff like that. And I think that's a big key. What sort of striking coaching, with all due respect to the guys in PE, is Lutando Biko getting in comparison to Richie Kwan? You understand what I'm saying? What sort of striking partners in terms of sparring are you getting access to compared to Apex or Coach Kwan University? You know what I mean? And I think these are key factors.
Yeah,
like Lutando Biko's physical makeup doesn't allow him to be like an expressive striker. Look, we've seen him throw like a spinning back kick and stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like he's got the confidence to do these things. But yeah, super interesting fight for me, man. Super interesting fight. I think it's one of those, like we haven't seen the go forward aggression, smack talk kind of stuff from JP. There's a lot of respect between the two guys, and I think it's nice for the fans to get to see a different side of JP, because I think he gets a lot of slack for being quite brash and outspoken.
We're gonna slap some of the baguette and get some heat
For sure, but that's not encapsulated. That's not who he is. You understand what I'm saying?
No,
That was like a situational thing that was once.
I thought it was
one thing
pretty
that happened.
funny.
Yeah, I thought it was brilliant. But you know what I mean? And look, the EFC thought it was brilliant as well, because I think we saw that baguette breaking on his face for like 24 hours straight.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So like, and he gets encapsulated into that's who he is, and that's not right. I mean, and that's not who. And he's been given a great opportunity to show that other side of him and win over a lot of fans. You know what I'm saying? Which is good for him, man. He's a youngster, and I honestly believe we're going to see him competing in the UFC at some stage. So you want the nation to get behind him and back him. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
and the
Look,
same for
I
Lutando Biko. To be fair, that's
I think it's tough to be like a dick towards Chris Bright and these guys. You know?
yeah,
Like
it's
he's
impossible.
He's got a crew of really nice
Yeah.
guys, from Sundile to Lutando. I mean, I haven't spoken much to Lutando at all. I don't actually even think I've ever spoken to Lutando, to be completely honest.
Did you? So just
But I
to
mean,
like,
that whole crew, like
Yeah.
Reese and all those guys, nice guys, you know. Chris is an awesome guy, the OG of MMA, you know, in South Africa. So I think it's just paying respect to to Chris and his team. Good set of guys, and just showing the respect there.
I had this like surreal moment the last time Carl Edenor fought. I was in his corner with him in Cape Town, and so a lot of things that had happened in the fight, Carl and his coach Andrew Fisher had been going over, because they predicted certain things happening, you know, like as you do, and he was trying to go like take Carl through this movement to like go under the legs, you know what I mean, like, because they figured that they would be on their back at some stage or against the fence at some stage and stuff like that. And these situations started popping up, but for whatever reason, Carl just couldn't put the two together. And in the change room after the fight, when we went back, it was there's a photo of it somewhere. I think I might even still have it. There's Andrew Fisher, Carl's coach, and Carl and Chris Bright like on the floor backstage, like. And Andrew Fisher's using Chris as like a dummy to like show them this move. You know what I mean? Like he's still like getting stitched. He's got like stitches in the back of his head, like Lutando's somewhere, but Chris Bright's there. You know what I mean? Like he wanted to come and speak to the guys and stuff like that. And
Legitimately one of the nicest guys.
it was such like a strange moment to see like you know, these two coaches like from opposite sides now like helping this same student. It was a surreal moment, man. It was so crazy to sit and watch like I was just sitting there quietly, like the fly on the wall, kind of watching this all unfold, which was cool. And that's the way Chris Bright and his team are. You know what I mean? Super respectful guys. And to be honest, like JP and Coach Kwan, that's how they are as well. You know, like I think JP kind of says, "Step on our toes, and we're going to give it back to you." You know? That's just the way it is. But
I also think that that whole team kind of got painted with the same brush as Chef, you know.
Yeah.
And then you remove Chef from the situation, and you realize those oaks aren't what Chef is, you know. And so I think people must be hesitant to say those FFM guys. That isn't the FFM team. That given all those guys were in FFM, right? But you had a different leadership structure in that team, and obviously it directed different like approaches to the game. Now that dynamic has changed, it's a different approach, not purely because you know, like Richie was always part of that leadership team, but I mean, Chef's more dominant approach kind of overshadowed everything else, you know. Sure. And now you got a more relaxed, respectful approach that is kind of like coming through from that team. And I think the longer you see that separation, the more you'll notice the difference between the guys and how leadership in a team. Changing the leadership even slightly can change the whole morale and the whole image of a team in the public eye, you know. So, yeah, I think they've always been respectful. I just think they were painted with another brush because of the people that were in that team, you know.
100%. Well, that's EFC78. You've heard our 2 cents. Place your 150,000 bets with whichever betting site you deem fit. That's Saturday, 13th of April, Cape Town. obviously, it's going to be on Supersport. 8 o'clock, the main card will start. As far as I'm aware, delayed start on SABC3. International
Why is
guys.
there a delayed start on SABC3? Just, they've been advertising the whole week, 8 o'clock slot for EFC for the reruns. And then the live event goes delayed. Is that just the deal that they had with Supersport potentially?
I think it's got something to do with that maybe, and it's also like they like if there's cricket or something on, EFC just get booted.
Yeah.
So I think it's kind of just to cater for all of that. So you don't have like guys like, oh, but it was on at 8 o'clock. Why is it now at this time?
Yeah.
So I think 9:30 was always their slot, so they kind of stuck to that.
Okay.
But yeah, like I don't know, like you have access to it for free.
Yeah, definitely.
From wherever, you know what I mean? So yeah.
And then Facebook prelims.
Yes.
Provided Facebook works.
Yeah, provided it works.
Those bastards at Master took my R1,000 for swearing on TV when it wasn't even on TV.
You bastards, Master.
Dicks.
SABC live, high quality, 360p.
Still for free, bro.
Not so much HD.
Cool. Let's
Awesome.
smack out some questions.
Yeah.
Okay, anyway, questions. Reese_Groenewald, he wants to know, if Zulu Boy wins again, what could be next for him? There aren't really any challenges for him. Other options is the UFC, maybe.
Ooh, pick me.
Yeah.
I would love to see Zulu Boy move up to Bantam and fight JP. I would love to see that. It was scheduled, and I know JP gets a lot of heat for it, but Zulu Boy pulled out the one for getting knocked over by the car. So he
What
didn't
did
pull
JP say to me in that press conference? Why did you jump in front of the car? That was one of the funniest moments ever for me. Jeez.
I mean, surely that should be the next fight.
Yeah.
You make the super fight, like give them all the money. Say everyone on that card, they came out with that that
Are
statement.
you saying give them 5,000?
They came out with that. They came out with that statement earlier this week, where like the lion's share goes towards the champions.
Yeah.
So fuck everyone. They all get R1,000 each.
Let's just make
The champions
EFC
get 100K each.
EFC 79.4. And it's just the two of them.
Listen, Keith Ho Bet Exchange. If you want to get back on that, we need like $250,000 for each of these oaks.
Yeah. So, what was the answer to the question, bro? So you want to see
Super
Zulu Boy versus JP? Look, I'm
Yes.
not mad at that.
For lots of money.
Yeah, all the money, and let's see that happen.
Will it happen?
It's one of those fights where you worried it's never gonna happen, and that's probably the truth. Will Zulu Boy go over to the UFC? I don't think so. I think if I'm Zulu Boy, if I have a proper management team behind me and I'm Zulu Boy, I'm looking at ONE FC, maybe, small little promotions like that. Not small. I'm not saying ONE FC small. Like Bellator's,
I think the
ONE
second
FC.
biggest promotion.
I just don't know if there's a future for flyweights in the UFC.
Well,
it's in the balance.
That's what I wanted to touch on a little bit as well. Is that Zulu Boy is investing heavily in this flyweight division. He's done a number of defenses, but half the flyweight division's been released from the UFC, and the only guys that are really left are guys that have some sort of territorial influence.
Yeah.
So you get like guys that got signed like Kai Kara France because obviously the Oceania environment. They kept some of the Asian guys, and like guys like Joe Benavidez will always be there. He's an absolute legend of the sport. Cejudo is moving up to bantamweight now to fight Marlon Mirage for the vacant title there. So I mean, as a flyweight, you have to believe that there's no real future in the UFC at flyweight.
Yeah.
So what's the best thing to do is go up one weight category, fight JP base for all the money.
Well, there you go.
Done.
Yeah, the smallest promotion in Asia.
That baby promotion in like Asia.
Yeah, look, if that's what I'll do anyway. Small promotion, but I'll still do it. Sashin Ganjak. Hello, brother. I would like to know an opinion from Warren. Does he feel fighters in the EFC are getting paid too little? This comes in light of Gary Joshua pulling out of his fight, and he sounded like he can't take the fight on short notice as he felt he wasn't getting enough time to prepare and that he needed to take care of his family, which sounded like EFC would not be paying him enough money.
Did you say Warren? I'm joking. No. Let's put it into perspective, right? If you go ask the UFC fighters if they're getting paid enough money, I bet you 80% of them like Pareto principle, 80-20, will say they're not getting paid enough money. I don't believe that the money being paid at the moment to like the lower tier guys is high enough. Not even. I think to be offered $1,000 and $1,000 for a title fight is, for me, if I'm gonna prep for a fight, it's 8 weeks of preparation, right? I will lose 2 to 3 times the amount of money than what I'll actually make in the fight from not being able to work in my current job, right?
Sure.
So I believe that I don't get paid enough money, but I don't do it for, like, I don't fight for money.
Yeah.
But I'm in a position where I don't have to fight for money. Whereas, like, you see some of the guys that are doing this full time, I don't know how you can survive on that money. But at the same time, it's not like you were promised anything more than that, So my argument with a lot of people that are complaining about the money is they come in, they say, they agree to the first fight at however much money it is. And the next fight, they get offered similar or just a little bit more, and then they start complaining about it, right? I don't believe that that's cause for a decent, valid argument. What I think is that you need to establish your worth before you sign for the EFC. If the EFC can't match that worth, then don't sign with them, So if you say you're worth 50 grand a fight and EFC is saying, I can't give you 50 grand a fight, from the get-go, you should say, okay, cool, I can't do this, right? If you come in and you accept the first fight at, I'm not saying this is the number, let's say you accept the first fight at 6,000 rand to fight, then the next time you fight, you lose that fight, the next time you fight, you're like, fucking want 8,000 rand to fight now. And you're like, but hold on, you accepted 6 and now you want 8, and I think what's nice about the UFC is they got set standards for championship fights. So if you're in a title fight, you get $500,000 US guaranteed, right? You're in a title fight. I'd like to see something more like that in the UFC, where it's like kind of disclosed that as a title contender, you're going to get so much money for being in this fight. But yeah, long story short, I don't think anyone in this world believes they get paid enough money to do anything they do.
How much is enough money to get into a cage fight with somebody? Like, there's no factor to define it. For me, there's a couple of things that people need to pay attention to here. One, are there guys that are maybe are getting underpaid? Probably. Two,
Yeah,
are they doing enough to make sure they are getting paid more? Probably not. You understand what I'm saying? What are you doing in terms of worth? MMA is an entertainment business. So what entertainment value are you bringing? So in those circumstances, Gary Joshua went about his business the right way. He just said, look, I've got a family to support. I need to stick to work. You understand what I'm saying? So he's not a full-time athlete in essence. So he's made that choice. You hit it on the point there. You've made that choice. You're not in essence a full-time MMA athlete, and that's where the sport is. The sport is still bordering in between the two. We do have full-time athletes trying to make a living out of it here, and not doing it successfully. In the case of Cheyenne Flismus, that one really, really I struggled with. There are a lot of guys who complain about money, 100%, but they're already in the organization. So then there's two major things that come up there. It's the bonuses that people are talking about and the pay. So let's use Cheyenne Flismus for an example. There is no bigger fight on the African continent for the female division that you could make.
Yeah.
So why would you not negotiate and offer
maybe
her
Cheyenne
more and make it more
versus
worth her while?
Amanda, but that will never happen.
But realistically, right now, with everything in front of you, that fight has been sold 1,000 times already. They've done all the work, the two of the ladies. They've built it up. They've created the emotion. She's come from a massive gym in States, in Extreme Couture, fighting this Polish lady who's an absolute gamer, who managed to win the title against all odds.
Yeah.
They've got this history, this beef. There was a scuffle behind stage with the two of them. It's like the female Jones versus Cormier. You know what I mean? Like, it's there. The marketing value is there. So why are the EFC not putting up the money? So let me give you my idea, because I honestly believe the EFC is like, well, we've got the SuperSport deal, we're getting paid X amount, so we're not really bothered. You know what I'm saying? Like, take it, don't take it. Someone else is going to take it. I'm not saying that that's my opinion. I think that's their approach. Whether it's wrong or right is up to you to decide. It's a business at the end of the day. They've got to make business calls. It's frustrating that as fans you're not going to see that fight, because I think it's a massive fight. I think they wouldn't have to do anything. The fight is done and dusted. You know what I mean? Like, why not just make it slightly more worth her while? Why not incentivize it? Because I think the bonuses are kind of becoming redundant, because people are not going to care about a bonus, because they're going to be like, well, seems like nobody's getting the bonuses, so I don't want to hear about a bonus. I want a bigger purse.
Yeah.
And I think that's where Gunther Kalunda was. So EFC are saying it's not true. The numbers are not true of what we've heard about 150K, and that they're saying that that's not true, which I can believe because they were saying this is speculation. Okay, this is not what the EFC are saying. This is what we are hearing from other sources. Is that he fought for 35 grand or whatever it was against the Rocker for the interim title, and then they offered him 3 times that. So we would have been in the region of 90 or 100K, but he wanted 150. So if you're Gunther Kalunda and I'm
I
the
actually
EFC,
understood that slightly different. I thought he was paid 15,000 for the Darasha fight and was offered 35, which was 3 times the 15. That's
15 times 3 is 45. Just saying, I'm the mathematician.
No, but it was like one of those.
Yeah.
That's what I thought was. I thought he was getting offered 35K because that's what
Okay.
Bernardo said. He said
Cool.
he's getting offered 35K to fight this fight.
I thought I thought he had 35 and they were 3 times.
I don't know, whatever it is,
Regardless. Numbers are, we don't know the numbers. There's
No
3
one knows
sides,
the numbers.
There's 3 sides to every story. It's his
Yeah.
side, EFC's side, and the truth.
Yeah.
So if I'm the EFC and I said to Gunther, okay, listen, let's go across the road to News Cafe Santon. You're going to fight Jose De Rocha too, and you sell the play side. Is he going to sell out the News Cafe? I don't think so. I honestly, I don't, because it's just like, it's not. If you do the same to Drickus, we're going to have to empty out the parking lot. You understand what I'm
100%.
saying? So that's how
That's
the
why
game.
Drickus
That's how the
got
game
offered
goes.
150,000 to fight. And,
That's how the game
But
goes.
what you have to appreciate on Drickus' side is he's established a value for
Yeah.
himself, right? He knows what he's worth to fight. He won't sign a contract unless that value is met. Okay? So what I'm saying to everyone is that if you're going to sign with the EFC, establish what your value is prior to signing with the EFC, and then enforce that value. Okay? If they can't match that value, then don't sign with the EFC. Go try another avenue, right? But don't come and sign and accept the value, and then start bitching the next fight.
And also, EFC for sure, don't say you're getting a bonus and don't pay it.
Oh yeah, 100%.
For sure.
Like-
You know what I'm saying? Rather just leave the bonus alone. Let's just forget about that
Just
shit.
don't announce the bonuses. Just
So here's some free work for fighters. Get a PR person involved, even if it's your mom, your auntie, your sister, someone to handle that sort of stuff for you. Make sure you're visible online. Make sure you're communicating. Drickus, for example, Don Madge, JP, so many of these guys have painted the blueprint for you on how to be. I don't care what you feel about social media. Unfortunately, it's a mechanism, and it's a big mechanism of the fight game. Don't make your name fucking Jack Slack down under 59725 when your name is John Smith, because nobody's gonna fucking find you.
Yeah,
That's the
100%.
first thing. If Warren King, bang, done. So we can find you. Understand what I'm saying?
100%.
Be active, update people. Make sure you're creating a value, because then when you go to the EFC, you have a value, you have a brand, you have something behind you, not just a fighter. I'm just a fighter. We get it, bro. We get it. But this is MMA, and it is part MMA, part entertainment. So people want to be entertained. You cannot go in there without a brand and say, I want 150 grand to fight. Be like, sorry, bro.
yeah.
It's just not going to
Well,
happen.
I think a lot of
the reality is it's not going to happen.
I think a lot of people get under the misconception that this is the martial arts game, right? And this is combat sports. We as the fighters, you come in. This is martial arts and combat sports for you. But for the EFC, UFC, Bellator, they are entertainment organizations. While they use combat sports as the vehicle to give this entertainment offering, it's still entertainment for them. So if you're coming in and I'll be honest with you, and I've been following the Gunther story, and the numbers that have the supposed numbers that were thrown around doesn't seem fair.
Yeah.
But at the same time, is that for a while I didn't even know that Gunther was the welterweight champion. You know, so I mean that just gives you an idea of the type of media presence he has. You know,
Yeah.
whereas when the whole thing was going down, I knew that Drickus had relinquished the title based on the media around it, but I didn't know who the other person was for a while. Not because I hadn't been told it, but because I'd been told it and there was so little coverage around it, I forgot about it. You know?
Yeah, there's got to be some sort of direction. Things have got to be happening. You know what I mean? And look, I also feel like there's a lot of naysay, there's a lot of negativity, but people, listen, be very wary of what and who you listen to. A lot of people are pushing their own personal agendas.
Oh,
A lot of people are pushing their own personal agendas at the EFC, and unfortunately, some guys are being used as pawns in these agendas. You know what I'm saying? So
Yeah.
you can't, like I say, there's three sides to a story. There's their side, the other side, and the truth. Are the EFC an amazing paying organization? No, they're not. They're a growing organization. They're a business, an entertainment business. So demand what you want from them. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, geographically for MMA fighters, yeah, it is fucking near impossible to get into overseas market. But even if you want to get in there, you need to have that brand, and you need to have your PR and your worth established. Anyways,
100%. The moment fighters start treating it as an entertainment business, things will go a bit different. And don't get yourself a fucking useless manager that has zero history in managing any sort of athlete or entertainment individual. Get yourself either a proper manager. If you don't need a manager, get yourself a lawyer to do to do your contracts and that with these people. But a lot of guys who come into the EFC and they don't even read the contract. They just sign the documents, and they don't realize what they've signed. You know, like they're signing the rights to the image away. They're signing a whole bunch of stuff. They don't even care. You know, they just go and they sign this document, but they've got no one like looking out for them. If you don't care about the money side, then fine, fucking sign everything. Just go and fight. Like some people are on that boat, and some people need to make a living out of it. And the people that need to make a living out of it need to approach it in a different manner. But please pay the people.
Yeah, just pay the people. Sashin Ganjak, similar sort of questions that he elaborated on. He also just wanted to send his regards to Warren. Don't know if you remember me from when we used to do BJJ at Novagen.
I do.
He says he remembers you 100%.
He's an actuary.
So the next question was Johan Smuts. We're going back onto the purse issues. Why is EFC not publishing wages of the fighters? If it is confidential and the fight is prepared to waive it, this purse issues are becoming a nuisance. Look, I think we've covered most of that. You know what I mean? Like, it's with regards to the EFC not publishing their wages. I don't know, man. I guess they don't have to.
I think from like.
Oh, excuse the lesser spotted Parkhurst Hardy Dar has arrived.
Chiming in for a response there.
Yeah. I think it was saying pay more. I didn't hear what it said.
Fees must. Wait, I'm still saying something.
Jeez, young
I think the only reason the UFC published it is because it's a requirement from the Athletic Commission.
yeah, and they're paying
right?
in millions.
Yeah, but I mean, if they wouldn't disclose it if there wasn't a requirement to disclose it. So I think the EFC don't disclose it because there isn't a requirement to disclose it. Because a lot of the time, even when the UFC publish these purses and that, there's a lot of criticism. Why is this fighter getting more than this fighter? And what they don't realize is that those fighters have different contracts, different like remuneration structures. So I think it brings a lot of like criticism. Some of it valid, some of it not valid. So until like Master say you have to disclose the purses, because the Master know what the purses are.
Yeah.
Master have to monitor the actual payments of those purses. So yeah, I don't know.
So just on there, like you spoke about Master, I saw a lot of guys trying to say, well, what are Master doing about it? This is a hard one for me. I don't know where Master fits in here. Do they look? They're sanctioning events, but like, what are they going to say? Hey, EFC, like this is not great. Like you need to pay more. Or do you think that there should be? Let's say, okay, EFC don't want to publish this stuff. That's up to them. They're a business at the end of the day. They're going to do what they're going to do. Should we be looking at a structured sort of? Should Master be structuring the pay? Should we say, okay, if you're a debutant, you should be earning 10 and 10, whatever it may be. If you're 1 to 4 fights, you should be getting paid a minimum of this. You should be getting paid a minimum of that. If it's a title fight, should we be getting paid a minimum amount and a maximum amount? Do you think that's what should be happening?
Yeah, I see. I don't know. I don't think there's been a standard set like that internationally. Even you know, I think there's a fine line between where Masters should and shouldn't be involved. I think Masters should enforce the contracts, and they should instill rules and regulations that protect the fighters and protect the organizations. Right. So maybe, for example, they establish a rule that insurance needs to be taken out on every fighter on a pro card. That's a standard. If you want to get sanctioned, that's sort of standard. I don't think that they can come in and be like, you have to pay these guys X amount of money. I think what they need to do is they need to ensure that whatever's been promised to the fighters is given to the fighters. I know a lot of commissions internationally, the fighters' purses are actually paid to the commission, and the commission issue the check on the night. We don't work in checks in South Africa, so there will probably be EFTs on the night. Or in South Africa, you get. I personally have always been paid within 1 week of fighting, right? The purse. The bonuses are a different story, and they're discretionary, and they're up to the EFC
Get
to
lost
do.
in the post, apparently.
So I think to like curb that entire criticism, just don't announce that there were bonuses. If you want to give out a bonus, then give it to the person for doing what they did, but don't announce and then not pay it, you know. But yeah, I mean, Claude and Tumba saying he didn't get purses from like May or whatever. I don't know what the situation is about the purse. All I can say is purses have always been paid within 1 week of fighting. Win bonus and appearance fee. But the bonuses is the discretionary bonuses for fight of the night, performance of the night. That seems to be the contentious issue on payment. Whereas Master should probably come in and say, you announced it, you must pay it by X date.
100%. What did you want to say?
Yeah, this was on the social media.
Yeah.
Like 900 followers.
900.
Drickus is 15,000.
So sorry, that's a good point. What I was trying to say about Drickus is, and a guy like Gunther, if he was smart and went about this the right way, Drickus made a move a while back where he was trying to break into a Polish market, and everything he posts splits in half, English and Polish.
Yeah.
That is genius.
Understand your market.
100%. So I'm saying for guys like Gunther, some of the guys from the DRC that are struggling with the English side, break it down, translate it. The technology is there, it's easy to do. If you're doing an interview, ask to do it in your language. You understand what I'm saying? If you're going for a meeting, do it in your language and get it translated. You know what I mean? There's guys out there that can do this, because I feel a big problem is a lot of guys are struggling with the language barrier, and you've got the technology is there to do it. So you don't really have an excuse. Just make sure you're doing the right thing. You cannot be Gunther Kalunda and ask for fucking copious amounts of money and then rely on the promotion to do the work. It doesn't work like that in MMA, unfortunately. No. Look at Conor McGregor, for example. Whether you hate him or love him, he changed everything. You understand what I'm saying? He brought this brashness, he spoke the game, he backed it up, he got the job done, and he got paid. And that's what's the most important. You got to get paid. And you cannot, you can't be a barman and go to like a fancy cocktail bar and not know how to flare and juggle and light your face on fire and shit like that, and expect the same wage as the clown who can. You understand what I'm saying? It's not how it works. That's just not how it works. If you have to bring entertainment value, and unfortunately, sparking guys and knocking them out is just not enough. You know what I'm saying? You have to have another side, and you have to manage that PR. Correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Your market, look at guys like Danny and Carl when they were over here. They made an effort to interact with the South African crowd, to build this South African fan base.
100%.
Whereas guys like Yannick didn't, and no one really, all guys like even Gavin, no one
But
really ever
okay,
played
Gavin, but Yannick still, because of the way he was outspoken,
infamous.
still had
The
people
heel.
tuning in. So he was the opposite side. He was still good at what he did. He just played the villain.
Yeah.
But he was still active. You understand what I'm saying?
But I just want to touch on what you were saying about the foreign fighters. So, you know, the UFC are trying to break into the African market, and there's lots of stuff being thrown around about coming to Africa and so forth. You know, if you're an African fighter, you're from the DRC, you're from Angola, you're from wherever, Tanzania, let's say Zimbabwe, market to your home crowd as well. You know, if the UFC go to that territory and you've got this huge following in that territory, you know, someone that's got a big following in that territory is going to get the nod over someone that's got a better record. You know what I'm saying? Because it's entertainment value. So once again, do the interviews in their home languages. I don't understand why they let the Afrikaans guys speak Afrikaans, let the French-speaking guys speak French, let the local guys speak Zulu or whatever national language they speak, and then just translate it. They do it all over the world. And then those guys can choose when they use English and when they use their home language.
I couldn't agree more, man. We have to stop this forcing guys to speak their second language. It just
also
doesn't work.
The fighters need to make a decision that they're going to do their social media in both languages. Like, you see all these guys in the DRC posting in English.
Yeah.
Why? You can access a whole country worth of support by posting in your own language and putting content out for them. So do it for both, you know. I think people just need to like break away from this. Everything has to be South African based. Let's think Africa now, you know.
Yeah, let's think out the shell. And know your worth. Do your things properly. You got to be active. That's just the way it is.
Yeah.
just the way it's got to be.
100%.
That's all we got for you. EFC78. Hopefully we've answered all your questions appropriately. Keep them coming. Tune in. Let us know. 13th of April. All of that jazz. Super Sport. If you've got any questions or where to watch it, hit me up. We'll make sure you get it. And thanks for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.